Alright, another Vloggerheads video, but not the Amadeus. Yeah, I really am done with that guy. Just finish off his last, he had made a couple of comments in his last video, which was just such bullshit. Complaining about me saying last video, when he was the guy who said last video 3 months ago. He said it plenty of times. He even posted a comment on the last video that he deleted. You know, he calls me a liar, and he's the one deleting stuff. Where he didn't even want to be bothered with, responding. So yeah, in his arguments, so his last 3 videos really haven't been arguments. They've been poetry, nonsense, babble. No quotes, no accurate quotes. That's the other part of it. Even when he quoted me in the one video, they weren't accurate quotes. He took out little they words and changes the words and changes the context and the meaning to suit his own purposes. Yeah, so what? There's just no point. Okay, so we've resolved the issue. Okay, we got it. I'm just saying I can't, as a thinking, intelligent human being, I can't have conversation with people who can't understand that suffering isn't their perspective. Okay, it's something that happens to conscious organisms. And if you can't understand that, you're just too fucking stupid. And the world humans like you would create would be too ugly to even contemplate. I mean, there's just no point. If we have to wait for us to have an emotional reaction before we do the right thing, that's just insidious world you're going to create. Then you're going to end up torturing prisoners. I mean, if people acted how they feel, yeah, we would be ripping, child molesters to pieces, limb by limb, torturing them for no constructive purpose. But no, we know better. We know our anger and our hate has no purpose in being civilized. It is not useful to civilization. So anyway, your philosophy is crap. It's nonsense. It's drivel. And I think I've demonstrated to be that. I've made the argument. So anyway, not to be serious, almost saying things. Vital Fines is, looking so bright compared to, also Frank. I just throw in this little thing. He played this stupid, idiotic game. Well, what if the kitten is made out of wood, and the tree is a kitten disguised as a tree? Well, then I guess it wouldn't be a tree anymore, would it? I mean, what's the fucking point? There's no point in having thought experiments if people are just going to ruin them, just change them. And that's what he did. I mean, I made it. I was so careful to point out it's just a kitten under a tree, nothing else, no other context allowed. That's it. Just that little experience is happening. Is it good or is it bad? No context. No way to turn it into a Nazi kitten so you can excuse it being tortured and killed. This is just such crap. And why? Why are people doing this? Why are they running from the simple truth that what constitutes the substance of value is how you affect feeling things? Oh, that's right, because they don't want to take responsibility for their behavior in their life. They don't want to have to accept the cruel fact that they're probably consuming more sentient welfare than they can justify. Alright, so that gets to Vital Fines. And she sort of raised the issue that's built on top of it. I mean, once you establish there's something of value, so we have established that something has mass. So now we can put things on scales, because now we've made things have weight. So now that we know that suffering has mass, it has negative weight. It goes on one side of the scale, okay? And we know that this joy thing or happiness thing, that it's sort of the opposite, or it's a balance too in some way. Now I'm going to argue that this happy thing is sort of a synthetic mass, and that it really can't compensate for this negative thing. But that's a whole nother subject. That they're really on a scale. They're on a level of incompleteness. Okay, and the perfection is really just zero. Of getting undeprivated is really the game, and all of everything we experience, our desire, is really a deprivation. It's really a negative. and but it's such a slight negative that we're able to contrive in our brain and turn it into a positive. And it's through this mechanism of addiction, attachment, compulsion that's built into us that we're able to unbalance the scales and see purpose in accepting way too much of this negative stuff on one side, and our addiction brain pushes the other side of the scale to balance it out. That would be my argument. I'm not going to make the argument to you personally. I mean, you're in the middle of a circumstance, and so I don't think there's any. I don't think it's very constructive for me to start arguing with you about this subject. But I have made videos on the subject, and I think it is important to understand what's happened to us psychologically. I mean, there is this thing called like a heroin addict, and we all think we're pretty rational in judging that that's an incredibly inefficient existence. We could look at it and say, yeah, well, this is quite awful. I mean, the guy's addicted. He doesn't kind of care about anybody else in the world anymore. He just needs this heroin so desperately. He'll do anything to get it because he's, not because it's going to make him happy, but because it's going to get rid of his pain, once he's a couple of months into the addiction. And even when he gets the drug, it's not going to be good. It's just going to get rid of the really excessive bad. And we'll see what he'll do. I mean, he's compelled. And that's sort of how we are. And especially with the culture, even piles more of this on, this sense of obligation to endeavor to persevere, to, keep fighting, and don't be a sissy, and don't give up, and don't blah, 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 blah. And, but it is going to be, it's always, it's a tricky argument because the value judgments about, how much pleasure's always so hard to describe. I mean, women, you could say, Hershey bar. For a man, it would be, orgasm. Blah, blah, whatever the thing is that we're chasing, the cheese, is always different for each person. So it's very hard to make these value equations about, well, how much would you endure for one more potato chip? For one more walk down the beach? For a hug? For one more hug? And some people will go through a lot of crap thinking they got to have that one more. Oh, I got to see my great-grandchild. See, that wouldn't do a thing for me. Just wouldn't do a thing for me. So I mean, those get very subjective and personal. But I'm going to argue that there's a psychology underneath all of it. And, I've basically argued that there's only 4 things that run the living world: consumption, reproduction, cannibalism, and addiction. And I'll explain that cannibalism is just a consequence of evolution on an island planet. As things start evolving, they start needing new sources of food, and they start eating, their relatives, so to speak. And the addiction thing is basically once you get this complex brain thing starting to happen, you need more complex behavior. Yeah, you just, this desire is a great motivator. Create repulsion and attraction, and you'll get this organism to behave in complex ways using this emotion and intelligence to react to the sensations of attraction and repulsion. Which sort of relates back to Frank a little bit. He is sort of repulsive. Let's see, why does it relate? Some reason. Yeah, just as a slight remark. He does this whole breed modification based on his theory that evolution is different on another planet and all this kind of crap. And what he was saying was basically bullshit anyway, because organisms that would eat other organisms won't be immobile, so you couldn't even call them trees anymore. You just couldn't. It takes energy to be able to do the neuron thing. Brains are consuming. It's the most energy-consuming organ you have next to your heart. So yeah, this is expensive, brains. and trees just aren't going to get enough food to be able to have a brain. So they're not going to be tree. If they're bouncing around, running around, it's not a tree anymore. It really can't be called a tree. Really, can it? Can it realistically be called a tree then? I don't think so. And yeah, they just can't collect enough food because food figures out, hey, don't go near the tree and you don't get eaten. So, you know, if it can't move, it really can't do the brain thing. But anyway, a small point, but just if he's going to be such an obnoxious, oh, look, I got you with my kitten made out of wood bullshit, then you should at least do it in some sort of accurate way. If you're going to critique sci-fi films, you at least ought to do it, you know, knowing your stuff. And in my opinion, you're not knowing your stuff if you're talking about sentient trees, because that ain't going to work. Biologically. It's not consistent with evolutionary theory. So, yeah, but just the whole, you know, this is really depressing. I really didn't think I'd have to go on the internet and explain that suffering sucks. And that's a primary value creator in our known universe. You know, I mean, apparently people think diamonds are really valuable. They don't think they're valuable because they make humans smile, or because they can do things in manufacturing that make human life better and then make people smile. I mean, I guess people really think gold is valuable. They don't think it's valuable because it pleases people. I just, and then you know, again, and then to even have to argue, you know, this Amadeus guy says, well, I don't eat kittens. Yeah, well, you eat pigs and cows and all these other animals, and so you want to explain to me the rational difference between these animals? You want to explain to me the difference between the sentience of a kitten and the sentience of a pig? You have some sort of fact-based, reasoned argument to justify why you can make a distinction between those two sentiences and why one should suffer and one should not? I don't think you can do that. It was just going to be subjective nonsense. Kitten cute, pig not cute. So, you know, that's sort of dumb, isn't it? That's dumb. So, in my opinion, you're dumb. Really dumb. And that's the problem. Human beings are, generally speaking, really dumb. So anyway, but there are two different conversations. The first argument is trying to establish that there is value, a quanta of value, that would be made out of this suffering deprivation thing. Even that, somebody left some sort of prick-ass comment on my video saying, I only agree with half of what you blah, 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 all this bullshit. And it's like, just because I didn't concede that exercise is hard suffering, I didn't say exercise isn't suffering. What I said is we're not talking about suffering at this far end of the range. We're at least talking about suffering in the middle, and I think I made it pretty clear that I'm talking about suffering at the high end. Okay, I think I did qualify that in the conversation. So to me, it's nonsense to talk about little rain when I'm talking about hurricanes. I'm talking about hurricanes. I'm not talking about rain showers. They're two different things. Fuck. So, anyway. And I say this stuff in the video. Like I said, what's the point of making videos? People don't listen to them. I mean, Frank just totally ignored the fact that I did confine the thought experiment. I eliminated it. I said no extenuating circumstance, no circumstantial bullshit, no nothing, no past, no future, just a kitten under a tree. And he has to sit there and all of a sudden say the kitten's made out of cement and, you know, just, you know, evil cement. So whatever. It's just depressing. So, yeah, but I just, this is so basic. Like I said, there's just no conversation. How can somebody have a relevant opinion on any possible subject when they don't understand what's valuable in the world? I mean, it's just impossible. You can't. You can't get anything politically right. You can't get anything right. If you don't know what right and wrong is. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, what good and bad is. I just, well, whatever. Positive and negative. Suffering is negative. Comfort is positive. I just don't even know how you didn't know that when you were like, I mean, how did you, I can't remember when I didn't know that. There's like no time in my history that I can remember being in wet diapers and knowing that.